All right, let's get right into it. For the longest time, if you wanted to figure out how a company was doing on sustainability, well, good luck. It was a complete mess of different rules, different guidelines. So how on earth did we get from that total chaos to a single coherent system? Well, that's the story we're going to unpack today. Seriously, have you ever tried to read a sustainability report and just felt like you were drowning in an alphabet soup of acronyms? SASB, GRI, CDSB. It's enough to make your head spin. And you're not alone. This wasn't just a feeling, it was a very real problem for everyone, from CEOs to investors. You see, the landscape was just crowded. You had all these different organizations, all with good intentions, but each was basically creating its own set of rules. And this wasn't just messy, it was a huge roadblock. How could you possibly compare one company's performance to another's? You couldn't. This fragmentation was causing massive confusion in the market. So, for example, you had the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, or SASB. And these folks were brilliant. They figured out that what's a critical sustainability issue for, say, a car manufacturer is completely different from what matters to a tech company. So they created industry-specific standards. Super smart. But another set of standards to keep track of. Then there was the Climate Disclosure Standards Board, the CDSB. Their whole mission was tackling one of the biggest issues out there, climate change. They were all about getting companies to weave climate information directly into their main financial reports, not just tack it on as an afterthought. You can see how vital that is. But it's yet another piece of a growing puzzle. And let's not forget the International Integrated Reporting Council, or IIRC. They were pushing this really fantastic big picture idea that you can't just look at the financial numbers. You have to understand how a company creates value in a broader sense for its employees, for society, for the planet. It's a great concept, but are you starting to feel how crowded this space was getting? And, this quote just nails it. All this progress was good, it was encouraging, but the side effect was that things were getting more and more fragmented. It was like having a library full of amazing books, but with no card catalog and no one speaking the same language. You had tons of information, but it was almost impossible to use effectively. Okay, so to really get how this all got sorted out, we need to hit pause for a second and talk about two words that get thrown around all the time: standards and frameworks. People use them interchangeably, but they're not the same thing at all. And understanding the difference, well, it's the key to this whole story. Let's make this really simple. Think of a framework as the architect's grand vision for a house. It gives you the guiding principles, the overall structure, the why and how. It's about broad ideas. But the standards? That's the contractor's step-by-step instruction manual. It tells you exactly what materials to use, right down to the specific measurements and metrics, so that every part is built the same way. So, to lock that in, a framework is that high-level conceptual scaffolding. It's about the principles you use to structure your thinking and your report. It helps you organize your thoughts on huge topics like governance, overall strategy, and risk. And a standard is where the rubber meets the road. It gets into the nitty-gritty, giving you specific repeatable requirements for exactly what you need to disclose. This is what lets an investor truly compare apples to apples between two different companies. You absolutely need both, the big picture framework and the detailed standards, to get a complete picture. And all this brings us to the real turning point in our story. The alphabet soup just wasn't working anymore. The confusion reached a boiling point, and the market itself, we're talking investors, we're talking companies, started to cry out for a simpler, more unified system. Enough was enough. And what's really interesting is that this wasn't some regulator from on high forcing a change. This was a groundswell. Investors were tired of inconsistent data. Companies were exhausted from the sheer cost and effort of reporting to a dozen different bodies. And get this, even the organizations setting the standards knew the situation had to change. And then things started happening fast. In September 2020, 5 of the biggest players publicly declared they were going to work together. Fast forward to June 2021, and 2 of them, the IIRC and SASB, actually merged. But the real earthquake moment came in November 2021 at the big COP26 climate conference. That's when we got the landmark announcement, the creation of the new International Sustainability Standards Board, the ISSB. So what was this ISSB? Well, it was the answer everyone had been waiting for. It was the solution, a single global home for sustainability reporting, designed to finally bring all those scattered pieces together under one roof. And its mission was crystal clear: create one single global baseline of high-quality standards. But here's the crucial part: it was all designed to meet the information needs of investors. That focus is everything. It meant the new standards would zero in on the sustainability issues that actually impact a company's financial performance and long-term value. Now, the ISSB didn't just start from a blank page. That would have been crazy. Instead, it was built by consolidating all the great work that was already out there. It officially absorbed the CSB and the newly formed Value Reporting Foundation, which, you'll remember, was the merged home of SASB and the IIRC. It brought the best of the best together. And it built on top of the incredibly influential recommendations from the TCFD, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. This was huge because it meant the new standards were standing on a rock-solid foundation of guidance that thousands of companies and investors around the world already knew and trusted. And there you have it, the end of the alphabet soup. All that complexity, all that fragmentation was finally streamlined into one unified home under the umbrella of the globally trusted IFRS Foundation. This was the move that finally brought Cohesion out of the chaos. Okay, so it's a neat story of tidying up. But so what? What does this actually mean for companies, for investors, for the global economy? Let's talk about why this matters, because the impact is massive. Well, the benefits are pretty clear. For investors, you finally get what you've always wanted: data that's comparable, consistent, and reliable, so you can make smarter decisions. For companies, life gets so much easier. It simplifies the whole reporting mess, which cuts down on costs and confusion. For the global markets, it helps money flow more efficiently to the companies that are truly building sustainable business models. And really, for everyone, it creates a shared language, so we can all talk about how sustainability actually creates long-term value. So let's be really clear here. This wasn't just some minor bureaucratic reshuffling. This shift, from total fragmentation to real cohesion, has laid the groundwork for an entirely new era of business communication. It's nothing short of a fundamental upgrade to the language of capitalism itself. And that leaves us with a really exciting question to think about. We've spent so many years just trying to get on the same page, just trying to speak the same language. So now that we finally can, what are the truly new, innovative, and game-changing conversations about value and performance that we can finally start having?